crazy weather today. Extreme winds, rain all of a sudden, but it seems like it stopped at the moment, I guess. With that in mind, what was going on today? Apparently it dealt with crazy weather too, and the police, I guess, crashing a drone apparently. This one says, AAIB report, DJI Matrice M21 V1 battery communication, warning appeared and control lost, pull door set. So what happened, huh? Apparently it happened a while ago too, but I guess it just got fully reported recently. It says, during the operation of a DJI Matrice M21 version 1, stronger than forecast winds caused the unmanned aircraft to drift beyond visual line of sight, and communication with it was lost. And they say the drone was being flown during a police operation when the wind at 400 feet exceeded the forecast wind, the manufacturer's wind limit, and the maximum restricted speed of a UA. The UA drifted beyond visual line of sight, and then communication with it was lost. When the battery level was low, it entered an auto land mode but collided with the wall of a house, damaging its propeller blades before coming to rest on a balcony. So it landed on someone else's property. I guess people would say here, imagine if it actually hits someone and so forth. So was it a power issue? Was it a wind issue? Was it a pilot error? It seems like it's really focused on the battery, because it says the investigation revealed that shortly after takeoff, one of the two UA's two batteries had disconnected, which resulted in its maximum speed being restricted. But this restriction is not referenced in the user manual, and neither the remote pilot nor operator were aware of it. When the UA detected that the manufacturer's wind limit had been exceeded, the message triggered on the pilot's control display was "Fly with caution, strong wind." Instead of advising the pilot that the limit had been exceeded and that the UA should be landed as soon as possible. And you can read a little bit more details, such as the operator. It says what here? Commander's flying experience, 14 hours, of which 5 were on type. It says what? The last 90 days, 2 hours, last 28 days, 1 hour. And they apparently had a visual observer and stuff like that too. It makes me wonder too with this, is that enough time to consider yourself as, I guess, a quote professional? Like 14 hours of training, it just sounds so little. At the same time, again, with that thought of, well, it gave you a warning, like it's strong winds, it's almost like me saying, well, look on the ground, it says, be careful, it's wet, it's slippery, proceed with caution. And yet you write in a report, well, it didn't tell me not to walk on there, it just said be careful, for example. That's kind of how I interpret it. Wouldn't that be kind of passing the blame to the manufacturer afterwards? But I guess that's a debate there. Would you think this is a manufacturer error with all things like the batteries and so forth, the wind in general, where you assume the drone should be able to withstand it, like this model? Or would you say it's a pilot error? Although there was one bit here where they say the drone shouldn't have even gone that far in general, because according to them, they set a max distance. Like it says here, the aircraft's distance from the pilot began to increase beyond 500 meters, which is not normally possible because the maximum flight distance from the remote pilot had been set to 500 meters using the DJI Pilot app. I think the only thing I can think of there is, if it was drifting, I guess there's not much you can do, like with extreme winds in that sense, because it says they were trying to press like what, return to home all the time, but it didn't actually work. But it makes me wonder, in terms of the distance, did they set 500 meters in terms of the height actually, instead of actually the distance between, let's just say, from here to a couple of blocks down? Maybe it was the height they set in terms of the limit. Because in general, for the DJI drones, that should be the limit to my knowledge. 500 meters height by default in terms of manufacturer defaults anyways. But if it was more of the distance in general, then you could argue there was something wrong with the manufacturer's, I guess, software, like the DJI app, or it could be something wrong with the drone too. So there's the question. Who is at fault there? And I thought this was actually interesting with all that news recently of Will Smith smacking Chris Rock on stage because he made a joke about his wife's hair. Apparently it says here, the Academy bans Will Smith from Oscars for 10 years. The Board of Governors for the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences met Friday morning to discuss the consequences for actor Will Smith following his slap of presenter Chris Rock during the 94th Oscars telecast and voted to ban Smith from all Academy events, including the Oscars, for 10 years. Now, apparently, too, he can still keep his award and all that, and it makes you wonder, does this really mean anything, or is it all for, I guess, show? It would be kind of like, for example, people creating, I don't know, regulations and stuff like that, or a law that doesn't really do much in general, so it's more for show to tell people, hey, look, we're at least doing something, when in reality, it doesn't affect much in the bigger picture. But I am curious just in general, like with this story, because it just shows you so much about psychology and I guess public perception in general. Like, what is going on? Someone does not just break out like that all of a sudden. There has to be something else going on, and a lot of the theory, which I would kind of lean towards, he's probably not happy with the relationship, for example. And it's kind of interesting where people started pulling out old videos where the wife has like a talk show, and as I mentioned before, apparently she brought him on there to air out their dirty laundry about the affairs and all that. And you can see in one of the videos, she was really pressuring him to be like on camera or something like that, and then he was really uncomfortable. So it makes me wonder if she's really, I guess, abusing the relationship in some ways, isn't it? That makes him go crazy in that sense. And when you have that type of, I guess, position in life, it sounded like he's really sensitive about his image portrayal as well. It makes you wonder if that's the case, actually.
You know Esther Perel is coming to the table. She's going to be at the red table. Would you say she has been instrumental in you and I redefining our relationship?
I would say don't just start filming me without asking me.
Oh my goodness. I'm still dealing with foolishness.
Because she don't just, my social media presence is my bread and butter, okay? So you can't just use me for social media and not, don't just start I'm standing in my house.
To me, it's really interesting because, again, when you strip topics down to its bare bones like here, it's so easy just to jump to conclusions and say, oh, there's a guy protecting his wife, for example. Whereas in reality, if you really deep dive into it in this sense, it could be actually, in many ways, if you think about it, maybe it's the wife that's abusing him emotionally, for example. You never know. And with that, it would kind of make sense where anyone who makes a reference to her, people would have to start doing their research on, let's just say, his wife, and in relation, since he's married to her, that could affect your public image as well, right? Because people will associate you with her, so if they think she's doing something bad, it'll reflect bad upon him. So maybe that's why he was going crazy, for example, because they don't want to, I guess, unwrap that bad side of their life, I guess, like with these, I don't know, affairs and so forth, whatever you want to say. But it's kind of interesting in that case. Not everything is as it seems. Because another example of stripping topics to its bare bones, a lot of people would make arguments, for example, when it comes to certain topics, like, oh, this isn't that bad, take a look at that instead. So if I was to think here, let's just assume she is the quote, I don't know, antagonist in all this. Let's just assume. Would you say, for example, mental abuse in a quote relationship is just as bad as, say, physical abuse? Or would you say no? For example, if someone's being abused mentally, would you go up to them and say, you call that abuse? And then show them, I don't know, videos of someone actually physically abusing someone, saying, that's real abuse. Like, in my opinion, they're just as worse when you think about it. Alright, see you guys later.